anybody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Making a motion.
I make the motion that we waive the...
Better late than never.
You may want to be quiet today, please.
I make the motion that we waive the reading of the minutes, as distributed by email. One of those, that Susan Pizarro seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Give me a second to bring it up. Talk amongst yourselves.
Folks, welcome.
I'd let him talk.
Nice to see everyone here. We're looking for the treasury report. We'll be making that shortly. We'll try and make this go quick. We know it's warm weather out coming up on the 4th of July. Oh, I gotta still buy some time, okay. Well, it's nice to see so many new faces.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, now it tells me look what's new in the bank. Okay. Later. Okay, in our regular civic account, we have $9,240.48. And we also have what we call the SOAN account, which stands for Save Our Natural Environment. It was an account begun back in the 90s to raise money to fight certain development and things going on in Orchard Beach, the water park and all that. We currently have $23,089.11. About half of that was donated by some of the movie and TV companies that do some filming up here. And that money, we've agreed to work with the chamber that will be used specifically, agreed by both of us, for certain beautification projects. And that thus ends the treasure. Oh, and anybody needs to pay dues, you can come see me at the end of the meeting.
Okay, moving along. As we know on City Island, along with many communities throughout New York and the country, opioid addiction is affecting all of us. Every socioeconomic background, it's hitting us all, our friends, our family, our loved ones. So today we have Erica. Erica, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
We have Erica today, and she's from the New York City Health Department. She's going to give us a little chat on opioid addiction and identifying it. Thank you. Let's have a big hand for her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Downing. As he said, I'm from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay, perfect. If you can, please let me know. I'll try to project my voice as much as possible. But as he stated, overdose, we are in an epidemic right now, specifically in the Bronx. Does anybody know what the overdose epidemic is? Everybody know? Okay. So it's affecting us. It doesn't see any race, any barriers, any social economic levels, education levels. It happens to anyone and everyone. And it's an unfortunate case, and I'm here to give you a little bit of background, but most importantly, what can you do to assist someone? Because with the Bronx, elected officials have been very involved in advocating what you can do and how to connect to resources in the Bronx. But some of the common questions that I get is, what do we do? I know someone, or I have a neighbor, or I have a child, or I have a friend. What can I do to help that person? Right? So that's something that I really want to highlight, and I'll get into that towards the end. But let me just go over the general information. Excuse my notes. I want to ensure I cover everything. So as we stated before, the epidemic is rising. There are overdose deaths that are increasing, specifically in the Bronx. The most targeted area that we see of the overdose resulting in deaths, because there's overdose that someone overdoses on a drug, but there's someone with overdose that causes death, right? So I'm going to be talking about the death and the numbers that we're seeing. Specifically affected area currently in the Bronx is the South Bronx, and unfortunately that's the case. That's what our numbers are projecting. And we are providing as much resources to that specific community in general to assist. And this is going to be a little bit of a shocker to everyone, but every 7 hours, someone dies of an overdose in New York City. And that is an alarming rate, right? Every 7 hours, someone dies, borough-wide. And this is only in New York City, as of now. So, a little bit of information. So, since 2015, I have some graphs here that I can definitely share, and it can be projected via email. This is available on our website as well. But it's increased. We've only seen a huge increase. It's increased over 40%. This is 2016 data. As of now, we're still waiting on our 2017 data. It hopefully should be out soon. But something that we all see very often is fentanyl. That's the trigger word that we're seeing a lot. And a lot of people don't know what fentanyl is. So fentanyl is usually prescribed by physicians when someone is in a chronic state of an illness. So for example, I'm going to use cancer. If someone is in stage 4 of cancer, they're in excruciating pain, and they're prescribed fentanyl. Fentanyl is a patch that this person puts on, and it's a very high percentage, similar to morphine, but it's like 100 times stronger. So this is prescribed by a physician for that specific person for a specific use. It's not something that's distributed to everyone that's in pain. It's only in certain cases. But the fentanyl that we're seeing is not fentanyl that physicians are prescribing. The fentanyl that we're seeing is fentanyl that are made in labs, usually out of the country, that are being cut into drugs. So the common one that we see mostly throughout the 5 boroughs is it's being laced in with heroin. So what happens is that someone takes, thinking they're going to take heroin, and it's laced with fentanyl, and it causes an overdose. So that's the unfortunate truth, because it's a little percentage will kill someone. So now we're recently seeing, our data is showing that we're seeing it being put in different drugs. So we've just seen an increase in cocaine. It's now being added to cocaine. So we're trying to work with our sister agencies. So this is an epidemic that we're working with all our sister agencies. We're working with the New York City's Park. We're working with NYPD. We're working with DSS, Department of Homeland Services, along with ourselves, right? How can we assist the borough collaboratively, right, with all the city agencies? And some people say, why parks? Well, we've noticed that there's an increase of syringes in certain parks throughout the borough. So how can we assist our park staff, and how can we create, a safer environment, not only for the staff, but for the people who use the local parks, right? How can we assist our sister agencies like DSS and DHS with people who may be overdosing in that area, or share a commonality, whether it's a shelter or part of a community-based organization? So we are working collaboratively with our city agencies in trying to prevent this. Specifically, like I stated, fentanyl is the one that's actually causing all the overdoses in general. And I'm going to kind of show you, I wish I could show you this graph, but I will share it, and it could be dispersed. But so New York City, think about like a pizza chart, right? New York City is, the Bronx specifically, 16% out of that chart. Out of that chart are Bronx residents that are overdosing. Specifically from the entire graph, 26%, Bronx residents make up 26% of New York City's population that's overdosing. That's a huge number, because the Bronx is one borough, right? We have 5 other boroughs. So it is an alarming rate. And as stated before, other common questions that I get, why the Bronx, right? The Bronx has a history of being overlooked and not having, it's a lot of factors, right? We can't specifically pinpoint it's poverty, or it's, it's health conditions, or it's housing. It's a lot of factors that go into it. But right now, because of the increase in this number, we're really trying to connect with our sister agencies and with the Department of Health and our community-based organizations that assist individuals who are either getting treatment or are getting some service. So we have a few things that we've been advertising. Many of you have seen our campaigns. We have our naloxone training. That's something that we're doing really big. We're working with organizations. We've worked with community boards who actually have the naloxone training. I want to say Within, I want to say a week from now, last week, if I'm not mistaken, Councilmember Salamanca actually did a naloxone training for his staff and the community board in the area. So that is something that we're working with. We work with community-based organizations. What is naloxone, right? Naloxone is actually something that we treat for someone who's having an overdose. It's basically, it helps you save that life. And some people say, well, how can we get naloxone, or how can we, connect someone to who may be living, in a specific situation where they know a few people or know of some people that may, need it. You can actually go into a pharmacy, and actually, as it's a participating pharmacy on our website, we have a list of all the pharmacies that participate with us on how they can get the kit, and it saves lives, right? You don't just get the kit, and the pharmacist actually sits there for a few minutes and discusses how the person can use it. So that's one of the ways that we are helping individuals with that. We have needle exchange programs that assist individuals just to prevent disease in general. I know we just had a recent report that we released about, the needle exchange programs and things like that. So we are working collaboratively with, like I said, with our sister agencies or community-based organizations on how we can help. We have unfortunately seen an increase. We haven't seen our numbers as of now projected for 2017. We haven't seen a decrease, but we haven't seen an increase from the percentage that the Bronx is now. So that could be with many factors, right? We are advertising a lot of campaigns to assist individuals, and we're also working with our community-based organizations, our community boards, our local elected officials, and even our sister agencies to assist this issue. So we are increasing, but we're working very hard to decrease. We want the Bronx to obviously we would want all boroughs not to have this issue, but the issue is here, and it's basically how can we control it and how can we prevent more deaths, right? That's what we're here for. I know I don't have that much time, so I really want to talk about NYC Well. So like I said before, I've had many calls from our local elected officials and community boards or constituents in general saying, I know someone that has an issue or needs mental health services or, needs a treatment center. What can I do to help? Our First Lady actually did our program with Thrive NYC, which I'm sure many of you have heard. It's mental health awareness where we basically try to destigmatize mental health because mental health and substance misuse go hand in hand, right? And that's something that a lot of us unfortunately don't know, and that's why we're here to educate, because many times when we do have someone with a mental health illness, we have someone with a substance misuse disorder, and it goes hand in hand. So we try to treat them both. We try to assist them and connect them to services within their borough, right? Because it makes sense if I'm a Bronx resident and I need services and you're sending me to Staten Island or you're sending me to Manhattan, that it doesn't work, right? We want to connect to our community. We want to ensure that the person is receiving treatment within their community, and that's what we're really trying to do. NYC Well is actually specifically for that purpose, to connect individuals to mental health services as well as treatment for substance misuse. So it's a great program. I'm really passionate about it. Sometimes when I go to my events, a lot of people don't know that it exists. But it's basically a call-in center. It's a 24-hour hotline where anyone can call in and say, I have this specific person, or I myself am looking for treatment within my borough. And there are counselors and mental health professionals that connect you to services within your borough. The person can call in. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline. If someone is in a mental health crisis or is suicidal in any way, our counselors are there to support that person, right? Because ultimately our goal is to prevent overdoses and prevent suicide, right? And that's something that we are trying to highlight. Many times you hear many celebrities that's recently that it was either mental health related or a substance misuse disorder. But what happens to the person who's not a celebrity, right? What happens to the person who's just your neighbor, your friend? We don't hear that, or don't have the resources to seek treatment, because that's another one. A lot of times I've gotten, specifically being in charge of the Bronx, well, the financial situation is not okay, my family's struggling, or NYC Well is free. It's completely free. It connects you to services, and anyone is able to receive it. We don't, because you are this specific neighborhood, or we connect you whether you live in the Bronx, whether you live in Manhattan and Staten Island. We want you to get treatment and get help. Our goal, like I said, is to prevent overdose deaths and to prevent suicides. And we have a specific unit within NYC as well that if there's ever a crisis within the borough, they send out that unit to assist that person or assist that organization to prevent, further crisis or, death, anything resulting in a death. That's it. I think my time is up. Please let me know if you have any questions. I may not have all the answers, but I will get to it.
Quick technical question and a comment. So you said that a big part of the problem is fentanyl, and just to be clear, so fentanyl only comes from prescription drugs, and they're cutting it into everything else,
No.
or is it or are they?
No. So fentanyl was originally prescribed by physicians for individuals who are in a chronic, like I said, chronic stage 4 cancer, right?
Okay.
What we're seeing is that these laboratories are not physicians, they're illegal, and they're basically creating this synthetic drug, similar to fentanyl, which is the purpose of fentanyl, but they're lacing it, they're combining it with drugs that individuals use, whether it's heroin or cocaine. So they're made in labs, and these labs are not run by professionals, so no average person who uses that specific drug will know exactly what's involved in it. And that's what's causing their overdoses, because there's no form. With a physician, you get a certain prescription, you get a certain amount, and it's for that person and for that purpose only. But that's what is the
I got
increase in
you.
overdose.
So it's arbitrary.
Yes.
And two, I just wanted to say thank you for dealing with the issue as far as mental health.
Yes.
We appreciate it because I know it's a hot button issue and a lot of people are talking about it, but they're not necessarily doing anything about it. So I just wanted to say thanks for coming to communities and discussing
Well, thank
solutions
you.
to the problem. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Any more questions? Yes.
Do you have any of those brochures available?
I do. My colleague actually, Jermaine, they're in my bag. I'm gonna.
I ain't going in the woman's
supposed to
bag.
hand them out. I'll get them. Just give me 1 second over here. So we can just pass them back. If anybody would like whether it's for an organization or a library, anything like that, please let me know. I'm usually in the Bronx 3 to 4 days out of the week. I don't mind bringing brochures or materials or even doing another brief presentation to anyone. I'm sorry, I had another question, yes.
This is a two-part question.
Sure.
First, you mentioned that a lot of the data is still coming in.
Yes, for 2017.
Right.
Yes.
Has it been disaggregated by population? Because I work with children in the teens in the
Yeah.
South Bronx.
Yeah.
Is there data on what age group is using it?
Yes.
Okay.
I have some data here. It's hard to talk about the data when you guys can't see it. But specifically what we're seeing with the overdose deaths, it is middle-aged individuals, men, white, between the ages of 35 to 54 is what we're seeing. Those are the highest peaks of overdose deaths. Surprisingly, I got a lot of questions when it comes to that, because a lot of, at least a lot of my audience members would assume that it would be someone younger, between the ages of 18 to 24, but it's actually middle age. And like I said, it's a lot of contributing factors. People say, why? Why it within that, right? It's so many factors, but usually what we see is that these individuals have been using drugs for a very long time. And either like I said, specifically with the fentanyl, being mixed into the drugs that they're using is causing their overdose. And with our young youth, which is a good thing in a sense, obviously it's not good when someone overdoses, but we're able to target them and get them into treatment quicker than if it's someone who's been, using drugs for a very long time, or having a substance misuse disorder for a long time. So we're able to connect with our youth and our younger adults a lot quicker and sooner, and they're more willing to go into treatment, which is great. Yes. Oh, sorry, you had another question.
You answered it. You answered it. My question was what's being done
Yeah.
specifically for youth, but you answered it, so thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is that middle-aged group, are they more susceptible to the dangers because of their age? And secondly, are they more capable of purchasing the drug, financial ability than younger people?
That's a good question. In reference to finances in general, I don't think we have anything specific that states that. However, most of the time with our middle-aged adults between the ages of 35 to 54, we do see that it's been progressively going on for a very long time, that when we try to engage and try to get into treatment, it doesn't always, it's not that they don't go into treatment, but it takes a lot longer for them to seek treatment. So it's more of a willingness to attend treatment, and it's also, like I said, when someone is doing something for a very long time, it's very hard to try to get them. We still try, we still engage with the community, specifically if someone has had an overdose. We do send out our RAR units to assist them and to try to connect them into services or let them know there's a community-based organization that seeks treatment, or whether you need a peer support group or a counselor. So we do try to engage with that community, but that's a good question. We don't really, at this moment, we don't have specific data whether it's financial ability to purchase the drug or not. So.
And that figure was for the whole Bronx, not the South Bronx, obviously.
The Bronx specific, believe it or not, the north part of the Bronx has had a little bit of an increase, not as consistent and as drastically as the South Bronx, but again, regardless of the part of the Bronx, the point is that the Bronx still has the highest percentage, the highest amount of people overdosing, right? Which is resulting in death. So we kind of need to cater to the entire Bronx. Yes.
Just, you mentioned the laboratories that are making them.
Yes.
Are they, are they in the U.S. or outside the U.S.? And then number two, if they're in the U.S., for that's why. I remember a number of years ago, they were using sinus medicine to make whatever drug they were making, and we had to sign with the headache just to get sinus medicine from to get the show driver's license. So are they using things normal, over the counter to make it in the laboratory here, or how is it, that type of stuff?
That's a very good question. I can find out if we have specific data on where these locations are coming from. But again, if we knew the locations of the laboratories, we would not have the fentanyl issue, right? Because NYPD, would shut those labs down and for sure, would prevent additional fentanyl basically causing individuals to overdose. But I can get you that question. Also, I have my business card. I know you guys have an agenda as well. I don't want to take too much time, but I have my business cards available. Please feel free to reach out to me. I can definitely answer your questions and connect with you.
I'm going to save the rest of the questions for after you stay,
Sure.
and then you can answer the rest of the questions. Sure. We really appreciate this
Thank
because
you.
we all know how important it is. Thank you. Next up, Cosmo, are you here? Okay, Cosmo's not here, so we're going to change up a little bit. We've had some issue on Facebook, so Tom wanted to address it, so I'm going to give Tom the floor so he can address what's been going on, so everybody knows.
See, I had the opportunity recently, I was recruited by Facebook, by the company, to be part of a focus group. And they did it through a marketing firm. And I had to go downtown and spend several hours in this focus group, and the group I was in was admins on community-based groups. And while they did compensate me for my time, the main reason I went is I wanted to get a feel for how other groups handle the issues we do. Because as many of you know, we've gone over this again and again, there are admins, 5 of us that are admins, and we each have the ability to decide whether or not to approve a post or whether to delete a post. And the executive board has given us the authority because, we just have to trust they said they trust our judgment. And so I asked other leaders, there was some groups that were, not really that active and they didn't have the problem, but others who had the problem, they said they do exactly what we do. They don't get people questioning them and, calling them and texting them and all that. It's like, that's the deal, they make the decision. So it's happened in the past. Fred's been called because he deleted a post. There was a recent thing that happened on the island, which I think is rather despicable, is somebody was posting some flyers, some hateful anti-Semitic flyers. And it was proposed to be approved on our Facebook page. Now, the flyer itself, there was a photo of the flyer itself. There was a comment underneath it about, this doesn't belong in our community, which is true, but the flyer itself I found rather disgusting. So I didn't want to approve the flyer, but there are 5 separate admins. Any one of us 5 could have individually approved it, and we all made the decision not to approve it. Because somebody could have seen that flyer on our page, skimming through it and think we were in favor of that. And then after a while, as you go into the proposed things and you go to approve or whatever, it sat there, because like when I look at a post and I say, I'm not going to approve that, I leave it there for a few days and so one of the other admins can approve or not approve whatever they want. And so then Fred and I were getting text messages, why didn't we approve the post? Well, this decision has already been made, is we're not going to take those kind of comments. We make the decisions. Your $20 you pay for dues allows you to vote. It also shows your support for the Civic Association. It doesn't give you the right to post this. That's our judgment. Then after it was deleted, because I got tired of looking at it, I don't know if anybody, we didn't see where it was put up, but it was posted on another site, and it was just horrible. So the one reason we wouldn't approve it, or I wouldn't approve it myself, I can't speak for anyone else, because I thought it could look like this was something we endorsed. But the other thing is, sick people who post that kind of crap, excuse my language, who put up those flyers, I understand it was put up on buildings on Carroll Street, or on the avenue by Carroll Street, they're looking for attention. And again, my opinion is not to give them any attention. But the bottom line is I'm revisiting this issue again. I don't want to have to revisit this issue again. If the admins make a decision not to post something, we don't need people either making harassing phone calls or making posts or so forth. So I just want to let you know, so I actually did take a day, several hours out of my work. I normally work in Jersey. We have an office in Midtown. I changed my schedule to work in Midtown. I took 3 hours in the middle of the day to become part of this focus group because I wanted to learn how other community groups handle this, and they do it like we do. If the admins delete a post or don't approve a post, that's it. There's no second guessing, there's no nothing. And so that's all I have to say.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
What am I doing?
Cosmo. Moving on. Cosmo Kramer. Okay. We have had radio issues in the area. Ham radio, is it? Ham radio? Right? Ham radio. So, some folks have a hobby, worthy hobby, of a ham radio. And, there are several on City Island, and we're going to be calling upon one of them to help us help the community. The reason being is because one individual has essentially erected a radio tower and is affecting the neighbors. So I called, you always start with a friendly phone call. I called the person in question, and I was essentially told, not my problem, community's problem, they have old equipment. I get a call from one of this person's neighbors when I hear this person on his ham radio talking to New Zealand, for crying out loud. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was like someone picked up an extension. So we like to do it the old-fashioned way. We go to the neighbor. We try to explain several times. Now, he has, in fact, invited me to his home to look at his equipment to see what the issue is. Well, I don't know about ham radios. I know about safety and security. So Fred thinks he has a fellow Islander. So this is where, good City Islanders come and help. They're going to come with me, right?
The end of the month.
Yep. So this person is going to come with me to take a tour of this person's house. So for those folks that, don't want to step forward, and I understand why, just know that we are looking into this for you, and we're going to go with someone with knowledge, and we're going to take it one step at a time. Yes, sir.
You left today for Maine.
That's what I thought.
You will be gone for 3 months.
We will be taking this up in 3 months and 1 day.
We can also do research.
Yeah, and we will do research. Thank you, good citizen. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cosmo. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna switch things around a little bit, because if he comes at the tail end, we shouldn't have to,
This
if
is
he,
the man, explain, he's the man from the.
yeah, he is the man, he is the man from the Marine Street Development. So I'm gonna put him last. I'm gonna switch some things around, so if those who wanna stay, stay, if not, no.
I actually had a question about it. I understand the ham radio, what's the effect that's happening?
Well, I wasn't, what? Well, all right.
Yeah, I don't understand the problem with
Okay.
ham radio, so that's what I'm asking.
No, not a problem. The ham radio is interfering with people's electronic devices, whether it's a TV, whether it's a telephone. You know, I was actually on the phone with one of this person's neighbors when I heard the person who owns a ham radio talking to New Zealand. Hey, you know, how's that New Zealand lamb coming along?
I had an issue with that.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Yes?
I had an issue with interference from the radio tower.
Really?
I had to put filters on all of my lines for a long time
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, which they actually filtered out, so when you picked up my phone and stuff, you could hear perfectly WCBS. So it was filters that I had to attach to all my lines.
Right. Did you try to? Got it. Yes, sir.
Okay, I mean, ham radio, if he has a license for it, and he has a license for the wattage that his equipment puts out, then it's perfectly legal.
Oh, you know,
It may be an annoyance, but.
no, 10 for that. No, there's perfectly legal, and then there's also being a good neighbor. We're going to discern the difference between the two. We're going to find out. Just because you can doesn't mean you should necessarily.
I have a license for a $500, 500-watt ham radio, and it's my hobby, and I'm allowed to use it, and he doesn't want to give up his hobby, what's our recourse?
We're also looking into the exact wattage because we think it may be a lot more than he's licensed to have.
Well, then that's an issue that you could, you know.
Well, a little birdie told me we got 3 months to figure that out.
And like he was saying, it has to do with the wattage, if they can find out how much wattage. But to your point, I did enough research, and I have a brother, thank God he's way up in Lake George, but he's a ham radio operator. And so I asked him about that, and he said basically it falls on the person who's being interfered with. As you back there mentioned, you had to put filters on, and that's basically what they say, is that, you know, as long as he's operating legally, the person who's being interfered with, it falls on them to either, you know, get new equipment, if they have old equipment that's not shielded correctly, or do whatever they have to do. That's as far as I know.
I had to have the phone company for that.
Wait. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's the antenna. He used to blast into my house. I couldn't watch a movie on my surround sound. He put this humongous antenna up. And
Yes.
now he's a transmitting radio station,
Right.
which he says he's legal to do. And I don't know.
So the antenna has a permit?
Yeah, I saw it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take someone that knows the specifics, and he was nice enough to invite me to his home, so I'm going to go with someone that knows. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions on this.
We're gonna go.
Oh, sure. Now that you did your song again, now you're going to go.
I'm gonna stand out, so I
Okay,
gotta
okay.
make sure she get home safe, and that's a long
Get
trip
home
here,
safe.
so-
Thank you so
I
much.
apologize, but thank you.
One more comment on the ham radio.
But there is a licensing formula that deals with
Have a good day.
number of
Have a good
feet
evening.
of transmission. You know, in other words, if you have a 100-watt radio, you can't have a 500-foot tower.
I think I'm looking at a volunteer to help us with this issue. That's what I think. Well, are you willing?
I think you're more qualified to investigate the situation.
All right. We're more than welcome to have people step up, but thank you for your participation. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to move some things around. We're going to go to old business and new business. I don't think we have any old business, so I think we're going to go to new business. And I think I'm going to, Tom?
Okay, this falls to me again. All right. So, as some of you may remember, we recently reconstituted the Board of Directors of Pilot Cove. And in doing that, we had an attorney help us come up with new bylaws. And in that doing, and in the conversation, we set some parameters, for example, with term limits and staggered terms and so forth. And it was pretty much the same thing as I've been on the Montefiore Advisory Board for almost 20 years now. I actually was appointed many years ago by the Civic. And in the beginning, almost 20 years ago, I helped them with their bylaws. And the bylaws that we put up there was vetted through all their corporate attorneys, and now as Montefiore keeps growing monolithically, all of their different entities, as they set up community advisory boards, they adopt the the bylaws that I did. So we had our first annual meeting. What we did is we had interim appointments of our board, and then our first annual meeting was in May where we had to do that, and then we had to begin the process of, okay, electing, so there's staggered terms. So this is a little complicated. It's kind of why I'm doing this early before like your minds all glaze over. So in this conversation, Karen Nanny, who's on the board with me, she brought up the idea that, and other people have suggested that we have term limits in the civic, and I think it's a good idea. But the way to do that is when you do it, traditionally it's done in groups of 3. It's staggered for 3, so at any given time only 1/3 of a board or 1/3 of a group of officers is done. But it's a little tricky to get to the point where you are, you have that staggering. Because what we have right now is we have 2 groups of 3 officers, and it's every other year is 1 group. I'm proposing we move that to 3 groups of 2 officers. And I have copies if anyone wants to read this. The way our bylaws works is we would make a motion in a second, but there's no vote or no debate or anything tonight. That will come at the following meeting. So I guess I should just read it as how I would put it, is that this amendment shall become effective with the election of officers held in 2019, because when you're coming up on an election in a given year, you really shouldn't be making changes then. So we started in 2019. It supersedes Article 6, Section 8 of the current bylaws. So as I write it, the term of each officer shall be 3 years, limited to 2 consecutive terms for each officer. The exception being, this is how we have to get into the correct staggering of the terms. The exception being that the first term under these bylaws for the second vice president and the treasurer shall be only 2 years in the first instance to achieve staggered terms. Okay, now I know you're already like lost, but this will become a little clearer. Okay. So the election of officers shall be staggered so that 2 officers are elected in each year beginning with the November 2019 elections. The 2 officer groups shall be, now what I did is I took the top tier officers, which would be president, first vice president, second vice president, then below that the 2 secretaries and the treasurer. So the first pair of officers elected, so the election of officers shall be staggered so that 2 officers are elected in each year beginning with the November 2019 elections. The 2 officer groups shall be 1, president and recording secretary, 2, first vice president and corresponding secretary, and 3, the second vice president and the treasurer. So the first pair of officers elected under this amendment shall be, because this coming year is the president and the recording secretary, I believe it is, will be voted on. So it doesn't count this year. So starting next year, the first pair of officers elected under this amendment shall be the first vice president and the corresponding secretary, beginning with the 2019 election, and they shall serve a 3-year term. The next election for these officers shall be in 2022, and then that office shall be every 3 years thereafter, but the officers would only be eligible for that second 3-year term. Okay, so the second pair of officers elected shall be the second vice president and the treasurer, beginning with the 2019 election, but they shall serve only a 2-year term. So that would be Barbara if she runs again, and myself, we would be a 2-year term. So then the next election for us would be in 2021 and every 3 years thereafter, but we would only have another 3 years in 2021, and then we're term limited. And the third pair of officers elected shall be the president, recording secretary, beginning with the 2020 election, and they shall serve a 3-year term. The next election for these officers shall be in 2023 and every 3 years thereafter. But again, for those 2 officers, after 2023, they're term limited out. So that's my proposal. And like I said, anybody can have copies of these, but the questions and the debate and everything would come next month. That's the way the bylaws are written, that we just make a motion on these. People can have a month to ruminate on it. Then next month you come with your questions, and then it needs a 2/3, I believe, a 2/3 vote of the members present. So, I'm not the chair.
Tom, can you send out your proposal
And then
by
we'll-
email to everybody
yes.
long before the meeting?
Okay, yes, like I said, the copies here for who, I should have enough, but I will email it out. And like I said, this is a proposal, and all we're gonna do now is I'm gonna make the motion that this be put up at the next meeting, and we'll have a second, and debate goes on at the next meeting, and you guys can just say, that's too crazy, no, we don't want it, or whatever. So, I make the motion, do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Wait, who's second?
I did.
Discussion.
Okay.
Oh, Terry.
Discussion.
No,
Beverly.
Beverly seconded. So, it's all right, so there's no all in favor or anything, that just means that we now have, and this is what's termed old business. When we were talking about old business really is only motions that are on the floor from the prior meeting. So this will be old business next meeting, we're gonna have a vote on this. And like I said, you guys can just vote no and say, yeah, it's, too crazy, whatever. So, okay, thus ends my,
Any other new business?
Tom, John.
Oh.
Sure. Tom, thank you for the proposal. It sounds good. Obviously, I had amendments that I was looking to introduce at the April meeting. As this is not going to be debated tonight, I would just like to make a motion. I came up with these. Again, these have been on the plate for a while here. Basically, it would create a sergeant-at-arms position. It would have a different term limit structure, which again, we can put both proposals up, see which one carries. And again, it would be a duly elected parliamentarian, a sergeant-at-arms, which I've served on other boards, so I know it's done elsewhere. It would also create kind of a mechanism for which, if someone is chairing a meeting, giving their opinion on something, they have to see the gavel, even if something is not voted on. And it would require, there's another thing in here about just for cause if someone wants to bring an infraction against someone else. So, as you said, we're not voting on it here, so I would also like to make a motion and then we can vote on them two separate ways. If they both don't pass, that's fine. Well, again, there's no discussion on this. I'm going to make the motion. I'm going to make the motion and you'll second the motion too?
wait, we got a motion pending, so you gotta wait. But do you wanna read your proposed amendment?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to raise my amendment. Article 2, Section 7 to the bylaws, Sergeant-at-Arms. The Sergeant-at-Arms will maintain order at all meetings, maintain a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, act as parliamentarian in dissolving any dispute concerning meeting operations in accordance with the Civics Constitution and bylaws as well as Robert's Rules, act as a member of the Executive Committee. Would add Article 6, Section 8 to the bylaws. No member of the association will be allowed to hold office for a period of 10 years or more. So obviously that would be people staggering in and out a little bit sooner. Again, this is the Civic, not the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's my opinion. And again, if people don't agree with me, they can vote on it at the next meeting.
Is that
Excuse me, I'm still reading here. No member of the association will be allowed, like she said that one, the president will be able to appoint any member as parliamentarian. This would be removed because, again, the sergeant-at-arms would be fulfilling that. And it's good to have an independent person maintaining a parliamentary structure. And then it would say, if should any matter be discussed at a meeting, and should the chair wish to give their opinion, his or her, on the topic at hand, they are required to cede the chair to another member immediately in order to facilitate fairness in any deliberations or discussions. This is applicable even if a vote is not taken on the matter at hand. They may not resume chairing the meeting until the matter at hand has been concluded. This way, if someone wants to go with somebody who's wants to debate somebody who's presiding, an independent person will come in, will give both sides of an argument. When the matter is concluded, finally discussed, chair goes back to the original person who's doing it. Section 8, I'll say this very quickly, it just basically puts the corresponding secretary in the terms with first vice president and treasurer. So one group would be 3, one group would be 4. And finally, we just add an officer of the association or a member of the executive committee may be impeached for cause, including breach of their duties, malfeasance, incompetence, or an infraction against the association or committee at large by petition of 50 members in good standing, and removed from office by a vote of 2/3 of the membership present called for that purpose. This is a minor change from what's already in the Constitution. The purpose of this is just, as Tom and I believe, actually had a discussion, is that right now, if you just don't like somebody and you get 50 people, and you might not like somebody for the color of their shirt or their blouse they wear that day, this way you can still do that, but you have to give a cause for what infraction so the membership can then judge that infraction and decide if it merits that seriousness. Again, I made the motion, I read it out.
I know there's no comments or discussion, but when you do it, you should, instead of the article, because you're not going to put it within the bylaws, it'll be listed as amendment 1 or amendment 2.
I'm happy if it...
I'm just saying, that's how it would end up on the bylaws,
Totally.
as an amendment.
Totally understand. I'm happy to take the substance of these and change it
No, no, and not only that, you could just say Amendment X, because let's say we've got, how many you have, 3 or 4?
I have 6.
Oh, you have
Again,
6, I have 1, let's say 2 of them are done, it would be
Yeah.
Amendment 1 and 2.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that it would be an amendment, it wouldn't be within the body of the bylaws.
And, we served on the bylaws committee together. I'm happy to work with you. I understand it's complicated stuff, to make it as seamless for people to understand as possible. So again, I made the motion. I believe Beverly seconded the motion.
Second, these are all the dollars.
So we will, I will hand these to you, and we will
Okay,
discuss
and
them.
I could include them in my.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
No questions?
I was bringing up new business, if that's okay.
Yes, I was gonna take in the back first.
Okay.
New business?
No, I'm not regarding what John read, but will we email both of these to?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the second thing is, a while back, I remember we had a bylaws committee, so are we doing this month by month, changing bylaws, are we gonna have a bylaws committee and like go over these, or are we just gonna take a vote
No,
every month?
can I answer that?
Yeah.
A bylaws committee really is when you're redoing the bylaws. So John, Stephen, and I were on the bylaws committee in 2015. We started, basically, we didn't start from scratch per se. We started with the body of the existing bylaws, but we weren't amending it. So like what you do now, if you've got a body of bylaws and you want to add something or change something, you do it through an amendment. We said, rather than add these different amendments, we're just going to do a whole new bylaw. So that's what a bylaws committee does. But an amendment to the bylaws at any point can be proposed as we did it tonight. That's our bylaws rules is you make you make a motion, somebody seconds it, then the membership is notified of what's going to be voted on in the next meeting, and then you vote at the next meeting. But there'll be discussion, and the next meeting we can discuss and debate.
The amendments, though, between all of these amendments, they seem much longer than the couple of pages of the bylaws we have now.
Well, we're gonna get to all this.
You're right, but that doesn't prevent them from being in, and maybe the language can be shortened down, or maybe some will be approved and some won't.
Dan?
Just in case, we started a petition essentially, which states, the gist of it is that we need consistent traffic enforcement on the weekend, because we feel like it's a safety issue. And so the gist is we are asking for consistent weekend enforcement, and the answer that we generally get is that they don't have the funding for it. So this petition specifically states that we need better enforcement and we need the funding in order to have that enforcement, so that can no longer be the answer to.
Now Dan, just to interrupt, this isn't a civic thing, this is your individual, am I correct?
That is correct. This I did
You
by
might want to
myself.
distinguish that.
So if you want this to have nothing to do with the Civic Association, that's fine. I'm going to bring this to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to put it in the stores. We have over 300 signatures already online. We have over 50 signatures here. We started it on Thursday. There will be copies around tonight being passed around. I'll have copies at my store. If anybody else would like to help out with the cause, we would appreciate it. So I just figured this is
a civic support petition.
Can I do that?
That's what new business is about.
I
You can make a
apologize.
motion.
I misunderstood.
So
I guess I'd like to make a motion to also make this a civic association issue.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Sure. So that way the civic can be on behalf of this also. However, please sign independently so we have both factions.
And this is something that needs a vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Cool. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Teddy? Pryor?
I would just ask, when you're sending out those proposed amendments, could you also send out the bylaws yourself?
Yes. Good
Thank
point.
That's a fair
Good
point.
idea, yes. Because, and just so you know, a lot of organizations have just bylaws. We have a two-part thing. There's the Constitution, which is basically a page or two, and then the bylaws. And I almost goofed in how to propose an amendment, because there's an amendment to our Constitution, which is a little different. To amend the Constitution, I would actually, that's why I originally printed these out, we would hand out the printed proposals and then vote on them in the next meeting. So, yes, you'll get a copy of a notice. The first section is the Constitution, and the second section of the bylaws.
Yes, sir.
I have a resolution I'd like to propose. So, and this actually ties into something that Tom talked about earlier. So I was actually the individual that wanted to bring attention to the hate speech that was posted on the corner of Carroll Street and City Island Avenue. I didn't see it firsthand, but it was sent to me by someone, the person who did see it, and he was pretty upset by it because, I mean, I think anyone should be upset by something like that. It depicted Nazi imagery, and he specifically was upset because his wife is Jewish. And this is a community that is diverse. We have a house of worship for Jewish people. We have lots of houses of worship, and no one should have to be, it shouldn't have to feel unsafe in a community like this. So the reason I wanted to bring it to the Civic Association's attention was because I wanted to propose this resolution, and I wanted people to be informed about it and know what we're talking about before I propose the resolution and talk about it. If it's all right, can I read the resolution?
Is it long?
No, it's less than a
Sure
page. Okay. Whereas city, and this is written, I Googled online how to write like a formal resolution, so I think it's formatted properly. But if it's not, let me know.
We're gonna judge you.
All right. All right. Whereas City Island is an inclusive community that welcomes individuals of all races, colors, religions, creeds, sexual orientations, and gender identities. Whereas at the general meeting of the City Island Civic Association on May 29, 2018, a racial slur was stated by an unknown individual in attendance. Whereas on June 16, 2018, the City Island community was subjected to a flyer that was an explicitly anti-Semitic example of hate speech. Now, therefore be it resolved that the City Island Civic Association, 1, condemn these instances of hate speech in particular, 2, condemn any and all forms of hate speech that target individuals or groups based on race, color, religion, creed, sexual orientation, and gender identities. And lastly, 3, declare unequivocally that hate speech and/or discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated by this association. And again, I know things are like, both, and Mike Shanley referenced this several meetings ago. I know that, nationally things are divided, and I know that even locally things are divided. But one thing I hope we can all agree on is that City Island is a good place to live, and there's no place for hate speech here. So I'm going to, I guess I'm making a motion that the City Island Civic adopt this resolution. Can I have a second? And also, I have copies, not for everyone, but I can hand out. I have a second?
No, it's only seconded. If you guys
Sure.
are debating, you can.
I have a copy.
Okay,
I have a copy. And I have like 8 or 9 copies if people are interested.
I walk every morning, no, not that. I don't know what I'm making, but I'm just saying I don't want to.
Sure.
Because I found one of the flyers that I said.
Oh, you've seen it too?
I seen it, I probably looked it up. But my question is,
Yeah.
what was the example you said of because I know the flyer, but what
Right.
was the other
So
example?
at the May meeting, of the City Island Civic Association, at the May meeting, at some point, I don't know who it was, someone made a racial epithet. I'm not going to repeat what it was, but I was sitting over here. It was like from across the room. I wasn't sure if I heard it because I've been coming to these meetings for like 4 years now. I've never heard anything like that. And I talked to several other people, and 2 other people actually came up to me and said that they heard it too. So,
All right, Steve.
yeah.
I'm giving you a lot of rope, so please.
Oh, I'm just, okay. So I don't think this is particularly controversial, and
It's not, but I'd like to make a suggestion for anybody who sees those flyers, rather than take them down, maybe you should call the 4-5, because, I don't know the details of what's considered a hate crime and what's not, but that could be considered a hate crime, and I think the police should document that. So that's my suggestion. Don't take them down, call the police, and have them come and document it.
Tom, real quick, I actually, Alex pointed that out, that it's a hate speech issue that could be a hate crime, I should say. I reached out to the individual who messaged me with the picture. He said that he was not comfortable doing that. I really tried to push him, I tried to persuade him. He wasn't interested. But I agree with you, absolutely. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Well, we haven't voted yet. There may be some more comment.
Real quick in regards to this.
Speak up, please.
Who determines what is hate speech under the articles of that? And what form of condemnation is appropriate for the civic association to do? Are we gonna put up a banner?
No, it's
What is, what would
He brings up a good point.
Well, I think in there he specified, and this is typical in the law. There's a law regarding hate crimes. Hate speech is different. The Supreme Court says hate speech is protected speech, but there are hate crimes. And doing something like that, for example, if you post a flyer on somebody's property, particularly maybe if that person is Jewish, especially, that would probably be considered a hate crime. But the details, you know, it's standard in the law, gender and race and religion and all that is pretty standard.
All right, well, yes?
I was just wondering if the resolution did pass.
It hasn't been voted on.
We haven't voted on it.
Yeah, I know, but if the resolution did pass, what does that actually mean?
Symbolic.
Thank you.
Symbolic.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's letting people know that.
There's no place for this
They're
here.
not going to
Right.
stand for that. Civic will not stand for that.
And so would the civic then board vote on what the nonsense would be? I'm just asking, look, I'm just playing devil's advocate. You know the other way.
I don't want to get into, I don't want us to become the Supreme Court and arbiters of First Amendment or hate speech. Because then that list will be as big or as small, me personally speaking. But it's a very good point. I would defer to what the law states. Kathy?
Well, first I want to say that anti-Semitic choir is disgusting, and I think most people at our civic meeting don't want that in our community. So this resolution to say that we don't like that type of thing, I think everyone here would agree with that. We need a resolution, though, to be human beings and recognize that that's disgusting and hateful. Excuse me. And also, you should really, if you really want to talk about it, about hate speech against women, because I don't think women in general, any women in general, harassment of women, that's something that we're going to start becoming the law. If these incidents come up, of course I think our community would condemn incidents like this, but I don't understand, we're going to have kangaroo courts and somebody...
No, it's just, no, I think it's just, if I'm hearing this right, this is just us as a community making a statement, we don't agree with that.
That's all.
And I have no problem with that. Yes, ma'am.
But I totally agree that we, as a community, should state that. Because I can, as I walk through my community, if I see something objectionable that to women or to hate or women, I can say to my fellow people and newcomers, we as a community oppose this.
Right.
And the Civic Association has a resolution, so come to the Civic and hear us.
There you
So
go.
I like
All right, so I'm gonna, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to rise to speak in favor of the motion. Steve, thank you for making it. I agree that this is not a judicial body, this is not a legislative body, that this is a very important first step to ensure that everybody knows that everybody is welcome in City Island. That we don't tolerate hatred, like that disgusting thing that was posted on the building. We don't tolerate language, like what I understand was said at the last civic meeting. We don't tolerate that here, because we are welcoming and accepting of all people on the basis of race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, etc. Dan and I were standing in front of the school today and saw this parade of awesome diversity coming in, young people in our schools, and for me, this is a first step, but it's incredibly important for us to take a stand on this issue.
There you go. So, let's vote on this, shall we? Wait, yes, ma'am.
I rise to say that it's a very good idea, but I think that the way that it's crafted is not appropriate. And the listing of the types